Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. There was something that appeared on the Wall Street Journal just recently, and it was a little video, and it's been on Twitter. People are talking about it. Actually, I saw where I found it was Ross Coulthard, who does a really good job with putting out some UFO videos recently. And anyway, he actually wrote on Twitter about this little Washington Post video with regard to UAP. He wrote on Twitter, "Refreshing to see a comprehensive analysis in mainstream media acknowledging the reality of the UAP mystery. Washington Post interviews Kirsten Gillibrand, who's the one who basically pushed for that recent language in the National Defense Authorization Act for 2023 that included the whistleblower stuff, and also Tom DeLonge and Neil deGrasse Tyson." And then he writes, Coulthard writes, "This just in, we don't know what UFOs are." And then it seems there was a lot of people in the UFO community that were praising this little video. Well, I'm here to tell you that there's nothing to praise about with this video whatsoever. Now, I'm not going to play this video during the podcast. I don't want to. I'll probably get dinged for copyright infringement or something like that. But I am going to talk about it, and I will leave a link for it. You can check it out for yourself. It's this little 8-minute long video that was posted on by the Washington Post with regards to UFOs, and it says here basically the government knows UFOs are real. Now what? UFOs are real and the government is aware, but that doesn't mean we know what they are and that they are signs of alien technology. Okay, let's just stop with, even before we get into the video, that little segment right there. Let me criticize that. Okay, yeah, UFOs are real, and some things are unidentified flying objects. It could be anything, right? I mean, there are, I would say most things out there that are UFOs, most of the time, there are conventional explanations for them. Although I do believe, like I said recently, I believe that actually extraterrestrial craft should be considered conventional by this point. I mean, I think we have enough evidence now over the years that as far as I'm concerned, shows that there's an extraterrestrial presence on this planet. Okay, but anyway, this video it starts off. I'm going to go through this video while I'm talking here. They have Tom DeLonge talking. They have people like Seth Shostak talking from the SETI Institute. Like, again, I don't understand why they have certain people coming on here like Seth Shostak, why they're interviewing these kind of people. Seth Shostak, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Let me just make this clear to the Washington Post, to the New York Times, right, to the Wall Street Journal, to Fox News, to NBC News, to ABC News, to CBS News, to CNN. Let me make something clear here. Stop going to people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, okay? The guy's an astrophysicist. He has no education. He has never educated himself on the subject of UFOs. He has no idea what he's talking about, right? None. Zero idea what he's talking about. How many times do we have to go over this? I go over this all the time on my podcast. Of course, as a small podcast, I don't have a gigantic following, right? But at the same time, I hope at some point word gets out. Look at Neil deGrasse Tyson is not the person to be going to. He's not the go-to UFO guy. He doesn't know anything about it. He's never studied it. And here, the other person they talked to here in this little 8-minute video that everyone in not everyone, but some people in the UFO community is praising. Like, look at, oh boy, it looks like they're acknowledging it. Well, okay, I'll give you this much. It's a little bit better than some of those recent articles that appeared in the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times, okay? I'll give you that. But again, it's read by the reporter, the narrator. It's like in this like disinterested tone of voice reading this, narrating this thing, and I guess to be edgy, right, or something like to that effect. And there's also talk about little green men and stuff like that. There's some history that they go over. That's some of it's true, some of it's not true. It's a mixture. This is an uneducated report from the Washington Post on this. They don't contact the real experts when it comes to the UFO subject. They just do not do that. And another thing, right? And this goes for everybody as far as I'm concerned. Okay, UAP. Okay, there's no S on the end of it. Throughout this little video segment, the narrator says UAPs. There's no such thing as you can't. That's grammatically incorrect. Okay, now let me just stop here for a minute. I know a lot of people out there who are going to hear this are going to say, well, hey, you make mistakes when you're talking on your podcast all the time with your grammar, right? Right now I'm doing it, right? But I'm talking just, I'm not reading off a script, right? I'm just blurting out the words that come to my mind as they come to my mind, okay? This person here's this was written out cleverly and strategically, and it was all written out before they made this thing, and before they published this video, right? So the thing is, UAPs, okay, think about it. UFOs, that's okay, because UFOs, okay, unidentified flying objects. Unidentified, okay, now the UAP now used to stand for unidentified aerial phenomena. Now it stands for unidentified anomalous phenomena. But regardless what you think it stands for, right, there is no word as phenomenas, right? So when you throw the S on there, it sounds stupid. It's grammatically incorrect. That's just a little small concern I have here, but I just think from moving forward, I mean, stop using UAPs. There's no, you say, because phenomena covers everything, right? I saw, last night I experienced some, or I saw UAP, unidentified extraterrestrial, unidentified anomalous phenomena. If you're going to use it in a sentence. Anyway, continuing with this dumb little video. Of course, they had Gillibrand on there talking, and that's fine. But then they have again Neil deGrasse Tyson. Again, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He just does not know. When it comes to UFOs, he's never studied the subject. He has no idea. He makes a joke out of it for the most part. And then he talks about the U in unidentified aerial phenomena. It means unidentified. He has to point that out like everyone's stupid or something like that. Hold on a second here. Let's talk about that for a minute. Okay, yes, there's unidentified aerial phenomena, unidentified anomalous phenomena, unidentified flying objects, whatever you want to say, right? However, right, the thing is, some of these things are extraterrestrial in nature. There's no question about this. But at this point, right, there's a worldwide gaslighting project ongoing here with the mainstream media here. Right, that's what's going on here. Putting these people on who are uneducated about this whole subject, talking about this like they know what they're talking about when they have no idea what they're talking about. It's gaslighting the entire United States, the entire world for that matter. Right, we're being gaslighted. Right, that's what's happening right now. We're being gaslighted. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, like to make fun of that, like we don't know that. Yeah, of course. Okay, yeah, something's unidentified out there. Okay. It's unidentified. Big deal. Yeah, some things are unidentified, but just because they're unidentified doesn't mean they're not extraterrestrial craft. Because here's the thing, right? Neil, right? If you did your research, you would understand, for one thing, that there has been a long 75-year cover-up by the United States government with regard to the UFOs, right? With regard to recovered extraterrestrial craft, right? You would understand this, right? You would actually come to a conclusion. If you did your research, you would come to a conclusion, right, that there's a secret control group within the United States government, and most certainly probably other governments of the world, right, that make sure no one finds out the secret of this. There's no question about it. There's too many witnesses that have stepped forward throughout the years, starting with Roswell, right? There's just a lot of evidence, right? There's been documentation, some documents that have been leaked to the public that pretty much show this. Right, so that's one part of it, and then there's all the tens of thousands of people who have seen landed craft and seen alien beings walking around them. There's physical trace evidence from when these things landed. There's tens of thousands of people who are abducted by aliens. People, right, who when they go to see a psychiatrist, they're hoping beyond hope that the psychiatrist is going to tell them that they're crazy because they don't want it to be true. Right? These are normal people. It's happening to normal people all the time. There are pilots that have been seeing these things not just since 2004, right? But since 1947. See, a lot of these people, they don't understand this, right? Because they haven't done no research. They think it's a big joke. Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's from a position where he thinks that if you get abducted, right? Hey, I don't understand. If you get abducted, why nobody's filming with their cell phone, right? Hey, if you should grab something, grab an alien ashtray, right? right, and run out with it. Like he thinks that that's something that could be accomplished. No, no, no. These beings have power over us. They're like many, many steps ahead of us. These people don't understand because they didn't study this. And these are the people that the mainstream press is going to for answers with regard to that. And meanwhile, they're not trying to get this to the bottom of this. They never pushed on this, Lord. They never pushed back against the Pentagon on this, ever, for decades now. This is going on. This whole gaslighting program of the mainstream media has been going on for a long, long time now. Anyway, as you could tell, right, this is something I've been thinking about this all day long. This has been brewing in me all day long watching this. Not only that, but they show pictures of a scene from, like in this video from the Washington Post. They show a scene from the movie Signs, right? Remember that Mel Gibson movie? Joaquin Phoenix was in it, and they're wearing tinfoil hats. They're showing stuff like that in this thing. This is a joke. This is a joke. This is like a lot of this stuff in this little video from the Washington Post is mostly common knowledge, but it's mixed in with Seth Shostak SETI nonsense too, right? And then you see some of the comments on here on Twitter about it, which really, I guess I don't understand. Okay, I actually wrote back on Twitter to Ross Coulthard's comment. I wrote, the mainstream media continues to ignore the fact that the Congress felt it was necessary to include whistleblower language in the National Defense Authorization Act. It's a giant story. It implies Congress believes a secret control group exists that works to keep the extraterrestrial reality a secret. Yeah, the biggest story right now is the fact that the Congress included that language and then passed that bill, and then the president signed it. That's the biggest story, because that implies that the people in Congress believe that must be a secret control group within the government that's keeping this a secret, that's preventing people from talking about this publicly. People who work within the Pentagon, people who work in the military-industrial complex, right, from saying anything. So they included this language because now this will make it so if they step forward now and talk publicly about this, meet with Congress and tell them what they know with regard to extraterrestrial craft and UFOs, whatever they know, right, and actual extraterrestrial beings that have been recovered from crashes. If they talk about this, they're not going to get any kind of trouble now. There's not going to be any repercussions according to this language. But they're not talking about that. They're putting out dumb videos like this. Again, I'll leave the link and you can check it out for yourself. But I'm just, it just boils my blood to see something like this and to think, like this is something really good. Okay, like I said, I'll grant it. It's a little bit better than some of the junky, bogus articles that appeared recently in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, right? But it's the same old garbage. It's the same old uneducated, unresearched kind of junk that whenever it comes to the UFO topic, they don't really research this, right? And then here's somebody on. I'm going to just go through some of these comments on Twitter about this that appeared under Ross Coulthard's tweet. It says it's a decent piece, but why didn't they talk about the latest NDAA legislation, reverse engineering, other UAP programs, et cetera, would have then been a much more interesting news item. Exactly. It would have been. That's the biggest story right now. It hasn't been. They're not talking about that in the mainstream press. They haven't even touched it. They won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. You know why? Because obviously what's going on here, what I'm starting to really believe, anyway, this doesn't make me right, but what I believe is going on here is that the Pentagon, whoever's in control at the Pentagon, reaches out to the publishers and the owners of these mainstream news organizations and tell them, hey, we don't want to talk. We're not talking about UFOs. You're not going to talk about UFOs. We'll let you know whenever we're ready. We'll let you know. Basically, the press, for the most part, the mainstream press has been acting like public relations for the Pentagon with regard to this extraterrestrial reality. They don't want the public to know about what's going on. And then some other people here. Somebody commented on Seth Shostak. It says this person was really impressed that Seth Shostak commented, but I guess he wasn't paying attention to the video because, okay, this person says about this. He says, and Seth Shostak said we can't find anything if we don't look. Hell froze over. Well, he was Shostak, let's just rein this in a little bit here. Shostak was talking about SETI, the SETI Institute's program to have these dishes pointing out into space trying to capture alien radio signals. And then he made it clear later on that he doesn't think there's any aliens here. Right, he doesn't, because guess what? If SETI, which should change its name to something else, because they're not a search for extraterrestrial intelligence. If they were really truly were, they would be concerned about the sightings and the reports and everything that's been going on here for decades now. Instead of thinking, he thinks there's a better chance that they're going to get radio signals from some other planet somewhere than studying the stuff that's going on here. And that's because he doesn't want to lose his job. Because if they started looking here and they found that there's extraterrestrials actually already here, what's the point in SETI, right? And this guy, he does not do any research when it comes to this subject. Nothing. When it comes to UFOs, he doesn't know what he's talking about. If you ever listen to this guy, when it comes to the UFO subject, he's never done any research. So he just has, his mind's already made up. Anyway, and then somebody else writes this hipster Sasquatch comment. Listen to this one. It says, UFO doesn't mean spaceship. It just means something spotted in the air that appears to be flying, moving under its own power, and that can't be identified. Whether not any identified things are a spaceship is the matter of contentious debate. What are you talking about? Again, people saying like Captain Obvious, a whole bunch of Captain Obviouses out there talking, making statements like this. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but here's the thing: there should be no debate. There really is no. I mean, it's for some people, right? There's no debate. Some people actually saw these things with their own eyeballs. Some people actually saw these beings with their own eyeballs, right? So and not only that, but there's a lot of evidence. Even if you didn't see them, right? If you were to do your research, if you were to look into this thing, if you were to read a few books, right, you might figure it out. You might understand. Oh, yeah, there is something already here. But they don't do that. They don't do that. A lot of these people don't. It's just, again, I don't know. There's nothing. I don't see any big deal here at all. This is just the same old, same old, same old. This is the same kind of stuff we've been seeing for years, right? Nothing changes. It doesn't change. Nothing's changed. This Washington Post little video doesn't do anything to. I mean, I'll say again. The only thing it is, it's a step up. It's not as negative. It's just a little step up from those New York Times and Washington Post articles recently that I've been complaining about. But again, the mainstream media, for the most part, it's gaslighting the entire country, gaslighting the world, right? They really do not know how to investigate this. They do not put, when it came to like things like Watergate, for instance, you had two reporters that really dug in, right? And the Washington Post allowed it to happen, allowed them to go after that story, and they got that story, right? It ended up with President Nixon resigning in the end. But with this, right, they don't do that. They never do that. Why don't they do that? Are they just so dense? See, there's only a couple of different possibilities here. I've talked about this before. There are only a couple of possibilities. One possibility is that there's just people working in these mainstream outlets that are just completely dense and dumb, and they're incapable of wanting to even research this, even having a desire to research this, because they just don't think there's anything there, because their minds are already made up. Or, like, again, the people in charge at the top of these things are telling them not to do this, and possibly for people from the Pentagon are telling those people in charge not to do anything with it. There's not many choices here. And again, to have these certain people on, how could anyone take a report like this seriously? Again, you have Seth Shostak from the SETI Institute, who doesn't know anything about UFOs, hasn't studied the subject, thinks it's a joke, doesn't believe there's any chance, that has not seen any evidence that would make him believe that there are aliens visiting this earth. Again, there's all these different cases out there that over the years, that the big cases with really good evidence, right? For instance, the Turkey UFO videos from 2007, 2008, 2009. A series of different videos were taken by this fisherman, and there were multiple other witnesses that seen this, right? A whole bunch of other scientists and film experts looked at this when it was over. A lot of them were very skeptical and called it a joke, but then when they looked at it, they realized, no, this is real, but we don't know what it is. But you could tell, you know what it is. When you looked at the videos, you could actually see a craft floating out over the sea, and sometimes there was this little hatch open, and you could see little beings in it moving around. Multiple. There was a gray aliens, there was a praying mantis alien, right? That's evidence. And then you have the Ariel school incident of 1994 that happened in Zimbabwe with 62 kids saw a fly, on a recess in the morning, broad daylight, a flying saucer lands near the school. Little alien beings come out. One of the beings starts communicating telepathically with some of the students, right? There was actually physical trace evidence left over. Those kids, they all told the same story at the time. They all drew the same kind of pictures, right? When they're trying to tell the people who were investigating at the time, right? And then now years later, they're all grown up and they're still telling the same story. You don't hear that. They're not talking about that. How come the press isn't talking about that? I think they've been instructed not to. I don't know. Either that or they're really stupid. One or the other. Either they've been instructed not to, don't go there, right? Or they're just really dumb. And I guess there is that one other possibility. I hate to throw that out there because this went out there because it sounds so crazy. It sounds even crazy to me. Maybe the aliens are controlling it. I don't know. They do have telepathic abilities. They do have power over human beings. During these abductions, people, are made to do things that sometimes they can't move, and they're made to do things that they wouldn't do otherwise because the aliens are controlling them. Is that what's happening somehow? I don't know. But again, I think it's one of the first two choices, most likely. I think that either the mainstream press is either completely dense, or they're getting instructions from the top not to go there, and maybe those instructions from the top are actually coming from the Pentagon itself to the top of the mainstream news outlets, and then on down, delegated down, don't go there. It's one or the other. That's what I think anyway. But again, to me, right, this Washington Post video that everyone's all happy, oh boy, this is something else. No, what are you talking about? It's something else. It's the same kind of junk we've been getting. They don't know what they're doing when it comes to this subject. Let me tell you something, folks, right? I'm going to tell you right now, there's an extraterrestrial presence on this planet, okay? Okay, again, like I've said this before, okay, now some people say maybe it's ultra-terrestrial or, okay, we'll figure that part out later, but there's a non-human intelligence here on this planet doing something. I saw one of the beings with my own eyes, and there have been tens of thousands of other people who have seen these things, right? The UFO reports are every single day. Right, some of them are not man-made craft. There's no way. I saw one of the craft in 1994. I saw one of these things, right? I'm telling you right now, if you would have saw this, you would know. You would know. But even if you didn't see that, if you did the research, if you did some research, if you read some books, books that have been put together by people who have actually researched this, those are the kind of people that need to be that the Washington Post needs to be talking to. The Richard Dolans of the world, right? People like that, historians that have actually studied this. David Jacobs, who has actually studied alien abductions. How come they're not contacting him? That's what they're not doing. We're getting to say, to this video, to the Washington Post credit, okay, they did throw Lou Elizondo in there and Christopher Mellon, right? But then they tried to balance it out with people who don't know what they're talking about, with Neil deGrasse Tyson and Seth Shostak. Anyway, as you can see, I'm very upset about this, and I think anybody who's interested in this subject and wants an end to this phony reality that we're being forced to live through by our top, by some secret control group within the governments of the world, right? Who want to see the end of this secret, being covered up, being kept to only to an elite few, right? You have to be angry about this, right? I'm angry about it. I'm upset about it. I'm sick of seeing garbage like this because this is garbage. This is absolute trash. These people the reporters working on this, right? They don't know what they're doing. They're not taking the correct approach on this. They go to the same old faces all the time, the same old debunkers. Right, it's just a shame. They need to figure a different way out because they're not doing their jobs. They are not doing their jobs when it comes to this subject.